Well, hello, fellas. It's great to meet you both.
Thanks to you.
Congrats on a fantastic film. I'm not gonna lie, I loved it so much. I've been hearing about it for a while. I have friends that saw it before me. I'm like, I'm waiting for my time. My time has come, and it was worth the wait.
Okay, well,
thank you so much.
And you have a new fan now, so expect to be tricked to come over, perform the film in my living room for a whole lot of money.
That can be arranged.
If the money is right, we can talk.
I have to see what's left over in my game of Monopoly from like the 80s.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So how does it feel to see a concept that started as a short film finally hit theaters as a feature film?
It's completely overwhelming. It's sort of, I don't know why. I think maybe it is to do with how long we've been like wanting to do it. We made the short film 18 years ago, then had a bit of a break for 15 years before we started writing this. And yeah, you don't necessarily expect to be able to make a feature film, yourselves. Maybe you like have a small part in someone else's. So to actually sit down at Sundance and watch the movie for the first time with 1,000 people was, I'd say, one of the most surreal and emotional experiences of my life. Yeah. So that's my answer to how does it feel?
The film does have such a quaint and really a charming film. That's the feel, which I really loved. What were some of the influences in creating this, this world and this quirky story at the same time?
Yeah, I guess, I think in terms of other movies, we've been very influenced over the years by like some of Mike Leigh's films, like something like Nuts in May, which is kind of a two-hander for quite a lot of the film. It is such a brilliant comedy with a really sort of such a vivid kind of central comic dynamic. So a film like that was an influence on us. Like something like Inside Llewyn Davis was a real influence in terms of the balance between music and story, and the sort of the how successful that was in making you believe this fictional musician. Yes, a lot of Alexander Payne's films, I think, something like Sideways, obviously big influence on us in terms of hitting that kind of comic but really sort of moving sensibility. So yeah, a lot of brilliant filmmakers have kind of influenced us. And I guess also just a lot of comedy, a lot of the comedians we grew up watching, a lot of TV shows, and people like Ricky Gervais and Steve Coogan and people like that who sort of we're lucky enough to have worked with since kind of like fanboying all of their stuff when we were in our teens.
Brilliant stuff for sure. Wallis Island is a place I want to visit. And so if I was a guest, Tim, what's the first thing Charles would make us do upon arrival?
Oh, well, I think it's sort of, I think Charles works in pretty predictable ways. I think we're off to the shop and we get a big ham. I think, although it didn't go in the film, just a word to the wise, I think my character does make homebrew beer, brews his own beer. So I feel like that'll be us in the evening, roaring fire, a few beers, and then maybe a stiff walk in the morning along the cliff tops.
I think Charles also probably got several packets of playing cards that have got cards missing.
Yeah, we could cobble together a pack of playing cards, probably.
Yeah. Maybe mostly jokers in there for some reason.
Imagine so, yeah.
Tom, where does this decision come to bring in Carey Mulligan? She's brilliant. I love her so much, and I'm excited that she's in this film. So where did that come about?
Well, I mean, when we were writing the script, we kind of came up with this character of Nell, and we're very excited about what that would give the film, and suddenly that could sort of really see the kind of scale of it, and emotionally what it would give us. And then we kind of drew up a shortlist, and I think we didn't really get much further than Carrie. We sort of were like, well, we got Carrie was definitely at the top of our list, and then Tim claims to have her email address, and obviously James and I were like, well, you don't, so let's not kind of kid ourselves. And then,
but the next thing I know, I've walked Carey Mulligan into the room and said, "Do I not have her email address?"
To say that Tim was the hero of the hour barely covers it. I mean, we were absolutely beside ourselves. We couldn't believe it. He'd emailed her and talked to her. I don't even think I knew you were having that call. I just heard that you talked to her, and she'd read the script. do it.
That's what's known as a high pressure call, Sean. You got to get those calls right.
Well, you pulled it off.
It's 1 hour, and you just don't want her to hang up at any point. You want, but you know, we were very lucky. She's one of us, really. She's like she fitted into the film perfectly. I mean, we've been working for 20 years, and then suddenly there's a different dynamic where there's three of us. And rather than that sort of disrupt anything, it just unlocked the whole film for us and turned it into a feature film, really, rather than a short.
Yeah, great chemistry amongst everyone. Tim, how do you balance making Charles feel both ridiculous but really endearing at the same time?
Yeah, I still can't work that out. I have been asked that before. I do not know. I mean, I think the thing is, I think if it's funny, and I think obviously it's not funny for Herb, but if it's funny, I suppose for me and funny for the crew and for James, I think that is a good starting point. If the audience are finding him funny, then you start to go to pull towards him and pull for him rather than against. Those two things are happening simultaneously. He's a very, very bad person for Herb to meet and a very nice person for the audience to meet. And then what we have with the feature that we didn't have with the short is hopefully once Carrie unlocks a warmth inside Herb, you have a sort of middle section of the film where it's warm, it's nice. You want to spend time with these three people because they're all in a really good place. Not for long, but they are all in a really good place. And so, yeah, I think possible to create a Charles which is 10% different and 100% wrong. But fortunately, you know, it's a team effort, and Tom's looking after it, Griff's looking after it, and we got a good balance.
Yeah, balance is definitely key. But what's one trait, you know, for this is for you, Tom and Tim, a trait of Charles you relate to, and a trait of Herb that both of you secretly admire or even relate to?
I think I'll take Charles and you can take Herb, Tim.
Oh, God.
No, come on. Try it. I think the thing about Charles that I find so winning, and why he reminds me of a lot of people, like, you know, in my family, the people I know, is that he's just always so upbeat, and he's always trying his best. He's not thinking of himself. He just wants other people to be at ease. And there's something that's so kind of like tragic about the fact that that's exactly why Herb is ill at ease in his presence, because Charles is constantly trying to make him like happy, and it's just making things worse. But I certainly sympathise with that. I feel like that's sort of my relationship with my children, is to try and sort of cajole them into feeling happy, and in doing so, I only irritate them.
I think in terms of Herb's character, he's sort of the opposite, and I meet these people and I cannot get my head around them. When someone's not a people pleaser, when someone doesn't mind if people don't like them, I literally cannot fathom it. I mean, I spent my whole life absolutely panicked that someone will walk away not liking me. And so when I meet these people like Herb, who are kind of unremitting, and there's you can live your life in either of these two ways. There's no wrong way. Certainly with Herb, you know, he leaves it all out there. He doesn't mess about. He checks whether he can get back together with Nell, and you know, a lot of people might worry that would cause a problem and not do it, but you have to check.
They're the perfect odd couple. I feel like it's great to see them interact, especially from, you know, the movie starts from the get-go of them two meeting immediately, which I loved how quickly we got them to kind of butt heads a little bit. But this humor in this film isn't something we see in the States over here, but it feels obviously delightfully British, but also universal. And I chuckled throughout from nonstop. I love this film. So how do you think the American audience will find their own special connection to this film?
I mean, in truth, I don't really know, and I'm still sort of getting used to the idea that the American audience kind of like responds to the humor and get what's funny about it, because, you know, when we were making it, there is something very British about it. There's something very sort of bumbling and kind of, you know, unself-aware about Charles, and something so kind of uptight and repressed about Herb, and these are deeply British traits, really. But I've been really delighted with how American audiences have kind of have warmed to these characters and found found them funny in the way that we do. So I don't know why that is. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. Maybe you'll have to tell me as the American on this Zoom. But like for whatever reason, it does seem like people are getting behind the humor.
But I think it's also the straight face throughout from the both of y'all. I mean, was there times that y'all were just laughing and just couldn't keep it during a scene? Because a lot of the things with Herb and Charles, I would just start cracking up if I was filming that scene because it's just hilarious.
Yeah, there were definitely times where it was more difficult to get through a scene, for sure. And I think that was usually quite deep into a scene where everyone's very relaxed and you maybe have it. We've got it. We've got what we need. And then you maybe take the brakes off. And actually, I think having worked together for a long time, I think part of it is the MO is to actually surprise the other person. And also know that we're doing it in, like you say, a realm where we're not playing that it's funny. I mean, if I'm trying to make him laugh and he's furious, his character's furious, then we're in quite an interesting zone, I think. but going back to it for an American audience, I do think comedy is like sometimes looked at as being for its own country, when actually it's not true. I think it's very universal. I think the only way to definitely guarantee Americans won't like it is if me and Tom had set out to write a film for Americans. You just have to write it for your own sense of humor. And also we had our whip hand was that we had a very inscrutable Icelandic director of photography who, if he's sort of smirking slightly, you know that you're breaking down boundaries.
No, this film is indeed so funny. I was chuckling with every single scene that came in front of me. If you could pick one, scene or a line that best sums up the comedic soul of the movie, what would it be?
Oh, I mean, I think a good example for me would be the scene when Herb is trying to leave and Charles is leafing through the timetable for the boat. And that was kind of almost in all of it was improvised, really. We were just sort of, we had a kind of, maybe a couple of lines there. And then we just got to play around with that scene and just kind of, keep finding new things in the schedule and kind of riffing off that. And I think, yeah, for me, I really love that scene, and it feels like there's something just kind of instinctively lovely about the dynamic and the humor at that point in the film.
Yeah, I think for me a kind of a line where it's Charles completely misreading the room, and so when emotions are very high and he doesn't read the room, so when it all goes wrong and he asks Herb, "What do you think we're going to do then, gig wise?" It kind of encapsulates, you don't want to hear the word gig-wise because that's just like the kind of language a moron would use. And rather than let the dust settle for a moment and say, right, what should we do in terms of tonight? Charging after him and saying, what do you think we're going to do gig-wise is exactly what Herb doesn't need.
One of my favorite scenes, I'm not going to give anything away, but the lottery numbers that are shown in this movie are actually two of my lucky numbers, 7 and 11, which was so weird because that's my birthday, right? July 11th. So like 7-11, I always pick on lotto numbers. But seeing the rest of the numbers, now I have a new set of numbers to try and see if I can make a buttload of money. And,
you got to do it.
And bring y'all here to perform this whole movie in my living room. That's the goal now.
100%. We'll do it.
It's a very strong long-term plan. I can't see that not working.
You have to remember, though, that our director is also doing that with those numbers. So you will be splitting it at least in two.
Yeah. That is fine. I'll take any money I can get these days. Lastly, I do want to ask, if you could bring back any retired music group to perform just for you, who would you pick?
I'd be it's not a group per se, but I'd be quite interested in seeing Frank Sinatra come to my island. Just rock solid.
I like that.
Well, in that case, I'm going to pick the whole Rat Pack.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'd have Sinatra and D. Master and Sammy Davis.
So halfway through my evening, Frank's going to leave and do a sub gig.
Yeah, he's got to leave. He's double books.
I think me personally, I'd pick Hall & Oates and even probably Daft Punk. I need Daft Punk to come. I need Daft Punk.
Daft Punk, do they not play together anymore?
they're retired now, but I want them back. They retired too early.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I reckon that would be. I think if you won the lottery, that would be a better way to spend it than getting me and Tim to your house personally. But I'll leave that to you.
I'll do it all. I'll make them enough for it by then, maybe. But Tom and Tim, this was fantastic. This film is a must watch. I'm excited to spread the word to everybody, and can't wait to see what else you're going to have in store for us after this just hits every single movie theater, and everyone wants more from y'all.
There'll be something else after this. Thank you very much for having us.